When I first got the job offer to work as a counselor at a juvenile rehabilitation facility in the heart of Appalachia, I was hesitant. The pay was good, better than anything I'd seen in years, and the benefits were generous. But something about the vague listing, must be adaptable, comfortable in isolated environments, strict adherence to guidelines required, felt off. Still, after months of unemployment and rent overdue, I told myself it was just bureaucratic lingo. The facility was buried deep in the mountains of West Virginia, hours away from any real town. After a winding drive through thick pine forests and narrow dirt roads, I finally reached the gates of Pine Hollow Rehabilitation Center. The place looked like a high-security prison more than a juvenile facility. High fences, spotlights, surveillance cameras everywhere. The main building was a square structure made of old gray stone, like something from the 1930s. Ivy crawled up the walls, and the windows were small and barred. The only splash of color came from a fading sign that read, "Guidance builds character." A stern-looking woman greeted me at the front gate. She introduced herself as Director Conway. Mid-50s, hair pulled so tight it looked like it hurt, and eyes that never seemed to blink. "We're glad you could make it, Mr. Langston. You'll find that things work a little differently here." I nodded, trying not to seem uneasy. She led me down a long corridor with cold tile floors and fluorescent lights that flickered just slightly, enough to make you feel like your vision was playing tricks. Kids in uniforms passed us, their heads down, silent. Not one spoke, not even a glance. "They're not allowed to speak unless spoken to," Director Conway said flatly, noticing my curiosity. "You'll get used to it." We stopped at an office, and she handed me a binder. It was thick, filled with rules, some ordinary, some deeply strange. She tapped her fingernail against the front page. "I want you to memorize these rules before nightfall. No exceptions. Especially the night rules." I flipped to the section titled Night Protocol. The first few rules made sense. Do not leave your assigned wing without permission. Lights out at 9 p.m. No contact with inmates after 8 p.m. But then things got odd. Rule number 7. If you hear scratching at your office door after midnight, do not open it, even if it sounds like a child crying. Rule number 9. The boy in room 14 is not real. Do not acknowledge him. Rule number 12. If the lights flicker 3 times in a row, hide immediately. You have 30 seconds. Rule 16. If you hear humming from the rec hall after hours, cover your ears and do not investigate. I looked up at Director Conway. "Is this some kind of hazing ritual?" Her face remained expressionless. "You'll understand soon enough." She left me to settle into my office, which doubled as a sleeping space for overnight staff. The room was sparse, just a desk, a metal-framed bed, and a small bathroom. The walls were painted institutional gray, and there were no windows. The fluorescent light above buzzed softly, irritatingly. The kids, I was told, had all been sent here for extreme behavioral problems. The youngest was 12, the oldest 17. But there was something about their silence, their perfect routines, that unsettled me more than any tantrum or outburst could have. It wasn't discipline. It was fear. My first real interaction came that afternoon. A boy named Martin was brought into my office. 14, skinny, pale, with deep shadows under his eyes. He sat down across from me but didn't speak. "Hey, Martin," I said, trying to keep it casual. "I'm Mr. Langston. I'm new here. Just wanted to check in and see how you're doing." He didn't answer, just stared at the floor. "You can talk to me. Anything you say here stays here, okay?" Still nothing. Then, very softly, he whispered, "Don't look in the mirrors after dark." I leaned in. "What did you say?" Martin looked up at me then, eyes wide and glassy. "They use the mirrors to watch, to learn. Don't look in them." Before I could respond, a guard entered and motioned for Martin to leave. No explanation, just a quiet nod, and the boy was gone. I wrote it off as trauma-induced paranoia. Many of these kids had experienced real horrors in their young lives, but something about the way he said it stayed with me. That night, I read through more of the rule book. Each page felt like it was ripped from some supernatural survival manual. Still, I locked my door, made sure the lights were working, and reminded myself this was just a job. Rules or not, I'd be fine. At exactly midnight, I was woken by a soft tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It came from the door. I froze. My first thought was that it was a prank, one of the kids trying to mess with the new guy. But then I remembered rule number 7. The tapping continued. Then it turned into scratching, faint, deliberate, like fingernails on wood. Then a voice, soft and muffled. Please, let me in. I'm cold. It sounded like a child. Maybe a girl. But no girl had been assigned to my wing. I stayed quiet. My heart pounded in my chest. The scratching stopped. Then a low whisper. I see you. I grabbed the rulebook with shaking hands and scanned for rule number 7 again. Do not open it. Do not open it. I didn't sleep the rest of the night. When morning came, the hallway outside my door was empty. No marks on the floor, no sign of anyone. At breakfast, I watched the kids closely. None of them looked at me, except Martin. He glanced once, just once, and he mouthed a single word, "Don't." That was my first night. The first hint that something was deeply, irreparably wrong in this place. And I hadn't even met the boy in room 14 yet. The next morning, I walked through the halls of Pine Hollow with an edge in my step, running on caffeine and adrenaline. The events of the night before hadn't been a dream. I remembered the scratching, the voice, the way the door seemed colder after it stopped. I didn't talk about it. Not to Conway, not to the guards. I had a feeling I wouldn't get any straight answers. Instead, I buried myself in the routine. Morning check-ins, silent breakfast in the cafeteria, file reviews. The kids were like shadows, obedient, silent, haunted. None of them smiled. None of them made eye contact. It was like they'd all been taught to live beneath some invisible line. Speak too loud, look too long, and you'd be punished. Or worse. By noon, I found myself flipping through the intake files in my office. I wasn't looking for anything in particular, just trying to piece together a sense of the place. That's when I noticed something strange. Room numbers went from 1 to 13, then skipped to 15. There was no room 14 on paper. My curiosity overpowered my fear. I grabbed the floor map from the binder and scanned it. Sure enough, there was a room marked 14, but it had been scratched out in red pen. No annotations, no notes, just a line that said unassigned. Later that day, during a rare moment of solitude, I pulled aside another staff member, an older man named Hector who'd been working maintenance there for years. I caught him replacing a light bulb in the hallway and struck up conversation. "Hey, Hector, quick question." He grunted in acknowledgement, not looking at me. "Room 14, what's the story there?" He froze on the ladder, didn't move for a full 5 seconds, then slowly turned his head toward me. "Don't ask about that room," he said flatly. "Don't go near it. Don't talk to the kids about it. You want to stay alive, Mr. Langston? Then forget you even heard that number." Then he climbed down, gathered his tools, and walked away like I didn't exist. That should have been enough. A warning like that should have sent me the other direction. But curiosity is a slow-burning fuse, and mine was already lit. That night, I stayed late in the rec room with some of the older kids. Group therapy, loosely disguised as game night. We played a few rounds of checkers, sat in a circle, and drew pictures with dull crayons. No one said much, but the silence wasn't as heavy this time. Maybe they were starting to trust me. After the session ended, a boy named Isaiah lingered behind while the others filed out. "Mr. Langston," he said quietly. "Yeah? You shouldn't ask about room 14. The way he said it made my skin crawl. Calm, flat, like he wasn't warning me, but repeating something he'd been told 1,000 times. "What happened there?" I asked, keeping my tone light. "Someone get locked in?" He looked me in the eye, then away again. "He talks to you if you look at the door too long." "Who talks to you?" Isaiah didn't answer. He just walked out. I waited until the hallway was empty before I left the rec room. The facility grew colder at night, the air thick with stillness. The silence was no longer peaceful. It pressed down on me, breathing against my neck. I walked the east wing slowly. That's where room 14 was. I passed the rooms of kids I recognized, Martin, Isaiah, the twins in room 6 who always clung to each other. I stopped when I reached the unmarked door, right between 13 and 15. It looked like any other door. Metal, gray, small rectangular slot at eye level. But something about it felt wrong. The door wasn't cold, it was warm, almost like a pulse beneath it. My fingers hovered just over the knob. I remembered the rule again. Rule number 9. The boy in room 14 is not real. Do not acknowledge him. The knob turned on its own. Not all the way, just a soft click, as if someone on the other side had gently jiggled it. I stepped back immediately. My heart pounded against my ribs. That's when I heard it. A voice from inside the room. Is someone out there? It asked, so faint I thought I imagined it. I said nothing. The voice came again, this time a bit louder. Please, I've been in here so long. I just want to talk. It sounded like a teenager, calm, polite, but hollow, like the voice was passing through layers of static or fog. I used to be like you, it continued. New, curious. They said I wasn't real either. Something moved under the door. I don't know how to describe it. It wasn't a shadow. It was more like absence of light, a smear of black that didn't belong in this world. It slithered back before I could process it. I ran back to my office, slammed the door, locked it, turned on every light I had. That night, I didn't sleep again. At 2:13 a.m., the lights in my office flickered, once, twice, 3 times. I dove under my desk and didn't move until dawn. When morning came, I found a note slipped under my door. Stop asking questions. No name, no handwriting I recognized, just those 3 words in bold black ink. Later that day, I noticed Martin wasn't at breakfast. Neither was Isaiah. When I asked the guards, they told me they were in isolation. No further explanation. By now, I didn't need one. I knew they were being punished, and I knew I was next. I tried to act normal the next day, kept my head down, followed the schedule, avoided eye contact with the guards. But something had shifted. The air felt thicker, the walls closer, like the building itself had noticed I crossed a line I wasn't meant to. At breakfast, the kids were quieter than usual. None looked up, even when I passed their tables. The chairs scraped on the tile like bones against stone. I noticed one boy, Elias, twitching, his head jerking toward the hallway every few seconds. When I passed behind him, he whispered something without moving his lips. They watched through the walls. I paused. What did you say? But he wouldn't repeat it. I spent the morning reviewing therapy logs, but my thoughts kept drifting to room 14 and the voice. The thing that spoke like a boy but wasn't one. The file cabinet in my office rattled suddenly, breaking my focus. I flinched. Nothing there. No one in the hall. Just silence. Then I noticed something strange about the cabinet. The back of it wasn't metal. It was drywall, poorly patched over, with uneven lines and a strange faint outline in the center. A square, about the size of a vent or access panel. I ran my fingers along the wall. Cold. Not cold like AC chill. Cold like a basement freezer. A knock came at my office door and I jumped. It was Hector again. You okay, Mr. Langston? I nodded too quickly. Yeah, just startled. He stared past me into the room, toward the back wall. You find the panel yet? My stomach dropped. What panel? He shook his head. Forget I said that. Hector. He stepped into the room, closed the door behind him, and lowered his voice. They won't tell you, but every office has one. Every counselor's room. It's how they listen, how they learn you. Who? I whispered. He pointed toward the wall. The ones who built this place. The ones behind room 14. I waited for him to elaborate, but he didn't. They know when you ask questions. That's how they decide who's next. Stop asking, Mr. Langston, or they'll come through the panel. Then he left. I sat there for a long time, staring at that drywall square. That night, I skipped dinner. I locked my door early, pushed my filing cabinet in front of the panel, and turned on every light again. I even slept with a flashlight in my hand. I kept telling myself it was just a building, just walls, just weird architecture. But around midnight, the temperature dropped suddenly. My breath fogged the air in front of me. Then came the scratching. Not at the door this time. Behind the wall. Light scratching like fingernails tapping from the inside. Then a whisper. It came through the drywall like static through an old radio. Are you listening now, Mr. Langston? I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I heard you ask about me. I like that. Most people don't care to ask. They're too scared. I pressed my back against the opposite wall, flashlight aimed at the panel. I want you to see what they did to me. It's not fair. I was just a boy. The drywall pulsed, like it was breathing. A crack appeared across the center of the panel. I didn't belong here. They made me into something else. Suddenly, the lights flickered. Once, twice, 3 times. I dove under the desk again, heart slamming in my chest. From the hallway, I heard a soft hum. At first, it was just one voice. Then others joined. A chorus. Children humming an old lullaby. Off-key, slow, unnatural. Then footsteps, not human ones. Scrapes. Heavy, slow, as if something with weight dragged itself down the corridor. I covered my ears, remembered rule number 16. If you hear humming from the rec hall after hours, cover your ears and do not investigate. Then silence, but not peace. From beneath my desk, I saw the shadows shift. Not like normal movement, but like the room itself had blinked. A figure stood just beyond the edge of my vision, tall and bent like a broken marionette. It whispered my name. Langston. My flashlight flickered and died. I didn't scream. I couldn't. Something inside me locked down. When I woke up, I was on the floor. The lights were back. The panel was gone. No sign it had ever been there. The filing cabinet was against the wall like it had never moved. I opened the door slowly, checked the hallway. Empty. But taped to the outside of my door was another note. This one wasn't typed. It was written in a child's scrawl. You listened. That means you can help. Meet me in the showers. Midnight. Come alone. No name. No signature. Just the growing certainty that I was being pulled deeper into something I couldn't escape. And that room 14 was only the beginning. The note weighed heavy in my pocket all day. I couldn't stop reading it. Couldn't stop running my fingers over the scrawled letters like they'd burn themselves into my skin if I let them. Meet me in the showers. Midnight. Come alone. It was the first time anything from this place had directly invited me deeper. Up until now, the horror had been reactive, a warning, a punishment. But this was something else. It wanted me to come. And the worst part, I was going to. I tried to act normal through the day, filed reports, sat through an orientation with 2 new inmates, even led a short group circle about self-reflection. But my eyes kept flicking to the hallway. I watched for shadows, listened for strange echoes in the vents. During lunch, I asked the head guard McCready about the east shower block. It hadn't been on my routine rounds. That block's out of order, he said, mouthful of cornbread. Plumbing issue. For how long? Since the flood in '09. Flood? He looked up sharply. That's not in your department, Langston. Stick to counseling. The other guards didn't mention it, but I saw the way they avoided the hallway that led there. Even during patrol, they made wide loops around it, never stepping past the old fire exit sign hanging crooked above the entrance. At 11:55 p.m., I slipped out of my room, rulebook tucked into my back pocket like a holy relic. I left every light on in my office and carried a flashlight, though I wasn't sure what good it would do. The halls were dead silent. No humming, no whispers, no scratching. Only the soft echo of my own steps on the tile, magnified by the emptiness around me. The east wing was darker than the rest of the building. The air changed the moment I stepped across the threshold. Colder, heavier, thick with mildew and something worse, something like rot. The door to the shower block was marked with faded yellow tape. It had been sealed once, but the tape was cut, recently. Inside, the smell hit me first. Damp concrete, rust, and something else. Something wet and decaying. The tiles were cracked and discolored, the ceiling above stained with black mold and long tendrils. The row of shower stalls stretched along the far wall. Most had their curtains torn or missing. At the end of the row, one curtain was closed. A whisper echoed through the room. Over here. I froze. Please, you came. You really came. The voice was faint, broken, like a cassette tape warped by time. I approached slowly. My flashlight flickered, casting jerky shadows across the tiles. The closer I got to the curtain, the colder it became. My breath fogged in front of me, forming clouds that didn't drift, just hung in place, thick and still. When I reached the stall, I hesitated. Then I pulled the curtain aside. No one was there, just a drain in the center, rusted and ringed with something black. The tiles around it were cracked in a perfect circle, but the whisper returned. Down here. I knelt, shined the flashlight directly at the drain. 2 eyes stared back at me, wide, pale, reflective like a cat's. Then a face moved into view upside down, as if staring up from a pit far below. You see me now, it whispered. That means you're real. I staggered back, slipping on the wet tile, the flashlight clattering beside me. The voice rose, desperate now. They changed me, said I wasn't good, said I didn't follow the rules. I crawled backwards as the drain began to rattle. The tiles cracked wider, the circle growing. A black hand reached up, thin and inhuman, fingers far too long. You can help me, let me out, just break the rules. The floor groaned beneath me, the entire stall shifting like the room was breathing. Then I heard another voice, behind me. Langston, I turned. Martin was standing in the doorway, barefoot, eyes wide with terror. "You're not supposed to be here," he hissed. "He's not supposed to talk to you." He called me, I thought. Martin grabbed my wrist. "He calls to everyone who looks too long. It's how he gets inside you." "What is he?" I asked. Martin didn't answer. He just pointed to the ceiling. Above us, the mold had formed into a pattern, a spiral. Black and dripping, it pulsed with every breath the creature below took. Then the humming started again. Not in the hallway this time. From beneath the floor. The drain shuddered. The tiles cracked open wider. I could see more of the boy's face now, if it was a boy. Its mouth opened too wide, its teeth too perfect. It didn't smile. It stretched. "Rule number 12, I whispered. If the lights flicker 3 times, hide immediately." The overhead light buzzed. Once, twice, 3. Martin dragged me into the janitor closet, just as the 3rd flicker burst the bulb above. We slammed the door shut and pressed our backs to it. In the dark, something slithered across the floor of the shower block. A wet, dragging sound. Martin didn't speak. He just handed me a page, torn from a different binder, older and stained with water damage. Supplemental rule, handwritten. If you engage with the boy in the drain, burn the clothing you wore that night. Do not wear them again. Do not keep them in the building. Do not speak his name aloud. I looked at him. "What's his name?" Martin looked me in the eye, and for the first time, he didn't look scared. He looked sorry. "You already heard it once," he said softly. "That's enough for him to follow you." We waited in silence until the sound outside stopped. When I finally made it back to my office, I stripped and shoved my clothes into a trash bag. I carried them out behind the storage shed and lit them on fire with a rusted Zippo lighter I found in Hector's forgotten toolbox. They didn't burn like normal fabric. They screamed. As the smoke drifted into the night sky, I felt eyes watching me from the forest. Not from the facility. Something else. Something waiting. And on my desk, when I returned, was a 3rd note. "Now he knows your name too." The fire had died out by morning, but the smell lingered. Burnt cloth and something deeper, something that reminded me of teeth and rot. I barely slept, and when I did, I dreamed of drains. Of the boy's face stretching up through cracked tile, his mouth moving but no sound coming out. Just silence. Deafening, crushing silence. The note still sat on my desk where I left it. "Now he knows your name too." I burned that too. It didn't scream like the clothes did, but the flame danced like it was alive, twisting in unnatural patterns before going out with a sharp hiss. When I showed up for the morning staff meeting, Director Conway was waiting. She didn't speak for the first few seconds, just looked at me, cold, quiet, calculating. "You were out of bounds last night," she said finally. "I couldn't sleep, just walked the halls." She didn't believe me, and I didn't expect her to. She walked over to the whiteboard and erased the day's schedule. In red marker, she wrote, "Obedience inspection, 9 p.m. The room went silent. I looked around. The guards were tense. Hector wouldn't meet my eyes. A new kind of fear settled in my chest. Something worse than ghosts or shadows or things crawling through the walls. Whatever the inspection was, it wasn't routine. Back in my office, I pulled out the rule book again. Pages fluttered until I reached a section I hadn't noticed before. Stuck between the laminated rules and a blank divider page. No number, no heading, just a sentence written in fading ink. "When inspection begins, do not speak, do not move, do not breathe louder than a whisper. If you fail, you will be removed from the program." The word removed had been scratched in by hand. There was no explanation, no timeline, no checklist. I wanted to run, but where would I go? The forest outside was thick and endless. No phone signal for miles. And even if I could get away, would he follow? At lunch, I checked in on Martin again. His eyes were sunken, skin pale. He looked like he hadn't slept since the night in the showers. "They're preparing him," he whispered. "For what? The inspection. It's not about us. It's about them. They want to see who's listening." "Who are they, Martin?" He slowly looked up. "The ones who speak without sound. The ones who whisper between the cracks in the floor. The ones who built this place." His lips trembled. "The boy is one of them. Or he's becoming one." Then he pulled something out of his shirt, folded paper, brittle and yellow. He handed it to me. A list, 15 names, dates beside each, and one note next to every name, removed. I recognized one of them, the last counselor before me, Elijah Dunn. His name had been whispered during my orientation but never discussed again. Now I knew why. He was gone. The date next to his name? Last year's inspection night. That evening, the facility changed. Lights dimmed. Guards stood silently at every corridor. No kids were seen. The intercom crackled to life at 8:59 p.m. A monotone voice said only one thing: inspection begins. The power cut out immediately after. I sat in my office, flashlight off, holding my breath. The hallway outside groaned, as though something massive moved across the floor, not dragging limbs or perhaps chains, or both. Then I heard it. A soft chorus of voices, layered and echoing. Not children, not human. They moved through the hall, stopping outside each door, listening. At my door, I heard the voice again, the boy's voice. "I see you now, Langston." A cold wind blew under the crack of the door. I covered my mouth, tried to slow my breathing. He spoke again. "They failed me, but you won't. You hear the rules now." I pressed myself against the wall, eyes shut. Something brushed the other side of the door. A claw, a finger, a tongue. I don't know. Then silence. Long, choking silence. I waited. At 2:47 p.m. the lights returned. So did the sound of the air vents. Like the place had taken a long breath and exhaled. Outside, the halls were empty, but on the floor in front of my door was a set of counselor keys. Not mine. They were old, rusty, with a broken name tag that read, "Done." I should have ignored them. I should have thrown them away. Instead, I picked them up. Something inside me clicked when I touched the keyring. A memory. Not mine. A flash of another office, another inspection, a scream, cut off mid-breath. I dropped the keys, shaking. But before I could collect myself, I noticed something new on the floor map above my desk. Room 14 was no longer scratched out. It was marked again. This time in blood-red ink. And next to it, written in that same jagged hand, "Now you belong to him." The next phase had begun, and I knew deep down what I had to do. I had to open the door to room 14, not out of curiosity, but because he wasn't asking anymore. He was commanding. I didn't sleep. There was no point trying. The facility was silent again, but not the peaceful kind. It was that thick, suffocating silence that settles just before something awful happens. The kind that clings to your skin and watches from behind vents and doorways. The map on my wall still had room 14 circled in red ink. The marking hadn't faded. If anything, it looked fresher, wetter, like it had been drawn in real blood. I sat at my desk with the broken keyring from Elijah Dunn in my hand. One of the keys had a faded tag, off 14. I didn't want it. Didn't want to know why it had survived this long, or why he had chosen me. But part of me understood now. Once you're seen by the thing in room 14, you don't get to ignore it. You don't get to pretend it isn't there. That night I walked the east wing alone. Every step echoed louder than it should have. The hallway stretched longer than I remembered, and the walls felt tighter, like they were closing in. The lights flickered once, but not the deadly three. When I reached the unmarked door between room 13 and 15, I stopped. It looked the same, heavy, industrial, gray, but now it breathed. There's no other way to explain it. The door inhaled. The metal flexed subtly, like lungs beneath steel. I took out the key, hesitated for only a moment, and slid it into the lock. It turned with a quiet click. The door creaked open, slowly, reluctantly. Inside was not a room. It was a tunnel, a narrow, pitch-black corridor lined with what looked like roots or veins, pulsing faintly. The air was wet and warm and smelled like decay. I shined my flashlight ahead, but the light didn't travel far. It was like the darkness ate it. Still, I stepped in. The moment I crossed the threshold, the door slammed shut behind me. The lock clicked. I was in. The tunnel curved downward at a slight angle, leading me into the heart of the earth. The walls throbbed slightly. I could hear a sound ahead, like whispering, hundreds of overlapping voices saying things I couldn't understand. Prayers? Warnings? Pleas? I came to a larger chamber. The floor here was made of stone, soaked with something black and sticky. In the center stood a chair, and in the chair was a boy. At least that's what he looked like at first. He was facing away from me. Thin, pale arms hung over the sides of the chair. His skin was gray and stretched too tightly over his bones. I could see the outline of his spine. His head hung low. "Are you him?" I asked, my voice hoarse. The boy's head twitched. Slowly he turned to face me. His face was blank. No eyes, no mouth, just smooth skin, like a wax mask unfinished. But somehow I felt him looking at me. When he spoke, the voice wasn't his. It came from behind. I should be. They surrounded me but didn't touch. He failed me, the voice said again. Done. He broke the cycle, tried to trap me. Images flooded my mind. Elijah Dunn, standing where I stood, a circle of salt around the chair, chanting for human tongues. A scream that split the walls, the door slamming shut, the creature imprisoned, but not forever. Only until someone got too curious. In his hands, older than anything I'd seen in the facility. Its cover bound in something that looked like human skin. Back away, Hector shouted. Don't let it bind you. The boy screamed. Not aloud, not with a mouth. The scream came as pressure, as pain inside my skull. The shadows surged forward. Hector began chanting in a language I couldn't understand. The walls shook. The tunnel groaned. Get back, Martin yelled. I ran. As I reached the door, the entire tunnel began to collapse. Flesh tore from the walls. The boy's body flailed, trying to follow. Then the door slammed shut behind me. Hector shoved a crowbar through the handle and bolted it. Then he dropped to his knees, panting. He's locked. Again. For now, he said. What the hell was that? I asked, trembling. He looked up. You just met the architect. Martin nodded. He builds these places. Through people like us. Every facility like this is a doorway. Pine Hollow is only one of many. I collapsed against the wall. Why me? I asked. Hector gave a sad smile. Because you cared. You asked questions. You wanted to help. That's how he finds his vessels. What happens now? Martin handed me the rule book. There were new pages now, fresh ink, rules I'd never seen before. And at the top of the final page, in bold letters, Langston Warden Kending Integration. I stared at the words, heart sinking. I didn't win, I said. No, Hector replied. But you survived. And at Pine Hollow, that was the best anyone could do. For now.